Hey everyone, and welcome to this Retail Strategy and Planning Series session, Designing the Future of Brick-and-Mortar. I'm Alicia Esposito, Senior Content Strategist for Retail Touchpoints, and I'll be moderating today's discussion. Obviously, we're all navigating new rules, new realities, and new consumer behaviors, especially in regards to their brick and mortar expectations, when they go to stores, what they want, what they need. So I'm excited for today's discussion, and that's what it's going to be, a discussion, because we're going to be digging into some of the new ways, new best practices, and new imperatives for all the store operators out there, the experience creators out there should be thinking about and considering as they design their strategies moving forward. So for those of you who may be new to Retail Touchpoints, encourage you to take some time, visit our main website. We provide everything from trend pieces to research reports, webinars like this, podcasts, video interviews with retail executives, and so much more. We also have really active communities across Twitter and LinkedIn, and really our goal is simple: to provide invaluable insights and best practices around the future of customer experience. So if you're new to us, welcome, and we hope you check out more of our great content, including our events. And speaking of which, a bit of a shameless plug here, our now virtual Retail Innovation Conference, which is our landmark event, is coming up soon. It's coming up on October 13th and 14th, and we have some fantastic speakers lined up, folks from Pinterest, Facebook and Instagram, executives from Untuckit, Third Love, Kroger, Party City, so many more. And we're really zeroing in on this big theme called the big acceleration. We've seen a lot of trends emerge and accelerate during these times. So we really wanted to go all in on innovation and really indicate how our attendees, folks like you, can accelerate innovation and really differentiate moving forward. So we hope you'll join us. And if you want to learn more about the agenda, please visit retailinnovationconference.com. So today's discussion is going to be about 30 minutes or so, maybe a few minutes above that. We typically save Q&A for the end of the discussion, but we really want to make this interactive for you all, which really digs into the importance of you all submitting questions as they come to mind. You'll see on this screen a quick little breakdown of all of the different elements in the On24 platform, which is what we're using today. And you'll see that widget that you can use to submit your questions. We hope to get to them as we go along, and we'll even have some folks on chat as well to answer questions too along the way. Also, a few key elements. You can learn more about our Retail Innovation Conference in the top corner. You can learn more about all the other sessions taking place during RSP in the bottom left, I guess my left. But most importantly, I want to pay close attention to the survey widget at the bottom. Our goal is to make sure all the content that we create is not just entertaining and valuable, but also really relevant to your needs and priorities. You, our readers, are members of the community. So please take some time to complete that survey because it really helps us do a quick gut check and make sure that our events and experiences are relevant and compelling every single time. All right, now let's get down into brass tacks. I do want to share a little bit about our speakers today, and forgive me, I have to go into the bios here, but they have such great experiences and great expertise. Really don't want to miss a beat here, and then we'll dig into the conversation. So our first speaker is Jeremy Brazil, and he leads the marketing and creative team at Reality Interactive, designing experiences anchored in insights and data for brands such as Spectrum, Taubam's, BMW, and more. Before Reality, as creative director at the Lego Group, he helped develop the first fully responsive Lego shop site and built the Lego Master Builder Academy, which I'm sure a lot of folks watching know about. Then, as group creative director for Co-op at the Coca-Cola Company, he helped develop brand experiences, including the Coca-Cola 3D motion sign in Times Square. Again, killer experience, great brands. Our second panelist is Jessica Amenta, and in her role as Director of Account Management at Reality Interactive, she taps into her natural ability of breaking big problems into small, bite-sized tasks for Reality's clients. She engages design thinking for client problem solving, directs program KPIs, leads project implementation best practices, balances P&L, and mentors team members all along the way. The best parts of her day are moments of laughing with coworkers. I witnessed that firsthand before we started things off, in between deliverables, and high-fiving on team successes, even if it's virtually. So thanks again, Jeremy, Jessica, so much for taking the time. I think we're going to have a great conversation.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, so thanks so much for the great introductions, Alicia. It's really exciting to be here. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so let's dig in. We have 5 key topics, I guess, to dig into today. And it was really insightful to see, what really rose to the top for your team. Again, looking at it from the creative side, the strategic side, and also the, client management side. Like, there are a lot of factors at play right now. So let's start high level, right? Because again, there are so many layers and nuances to this really big topic. Because you're so focused on experience, right? And we've seen experience kind of get redefined and get different definitions, right? Experiential retail has been such a hot button trend. And technology has always played a role in that, usually to create entertainment in stores, maximize engagement, dwell times, all of that good stuff. But with COVID, I feel like there has been a bit of a shift as far as how people talk about in-store technology, think about in-store technology and what experience kind of means right now. So would really love your take around how COVID overall has changed the way retailers are analyzing and investing in store technology right now, right? Especially through that lens of safety and health and a different set of priorities, right? So would love your take on what's happening right now.
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. Do you want me to take that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So us, like everybody, we're in a bit of a bind, right? I mean, to be honest, that's actually probably understating it. When COVID happened and the pandemic began and businesses were starting to have to close their doors temporarily and things of that nature. The same went with us. We had to really rethink how we were approaching our business. And we spent a fair amount of time talking to our clients, talking to customers and shoppers and consumers, and really doing the temperature gauge pun intended on really what was happening out there. And our gut reaction was probably similar to a lot of people that are watching this and maybe to things that you've been hearing. The big thing was really about ensuring customers were healthy. That was the first thing everybody was looking at. Are we going to have to take temperatures of everybody walking into a retail environment? How is that going to happen? Is it even possible? And we were looking at that as well. And we, for our own purposes, we started bringing development in on this product right here, which is Access, it's thermoscanner enabled, but it's a digital hub. It ties into third-party systems and platforms and things like that. It's very scalable, and we were using it in our own location for our employees that had to be on site, right? So we wanted to make sure they were coming to work, their temperature was getting taken, we were documenting that stuff, and we were like, our clients could probably use this, right, as well. So we started talking to them, and in those conversations, it started shifting, right? Like people started getting extremely real on what was going on. We're not going to be able to take everybody's temperature that walks through the front of a retail store or a restaurant. That would cause all sorts of challenges for businesses. I mean, how can you turn somebody away when you're trying to reopen your business, to be honest? And how are they going to react to that? And then the shift started happening, right? It was more about, okay, let's show them that we're differentiating ourselves by being a safe environment. So our employees are safe. If it's a restaurant, the servers are wearing masks. They're cleaning up the environment all the time. If it's a retail, and the temperatures are getting taken of those employees regularly. So that's where the focus with this product started happening. And we started realizing, look, you're not going to be able, a retailer's not going to be able to open successfully if the customers that are walking through those doors do not feel safe. So that's been the biggest, probably, technology thing that we've seen from that. It's about keeping your employees safe, and therefore that's going to keep your customers safe and the confidence level.
Right. And employees, as long as they're feeling comfortable and safe, then they'll be able to service your customers and focus on that, the customers that are coming in the door.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And I think, this situation in particular just shows how everything is so connected, right? It's almost like a domino effect, for lack of a better term. So, we heard a lot about employees feeling unsafe, especially those at essential retailers, right? Are worried about that risk. And that ultimately leads them to either call out or, just voluntarily say, I'm not going to work, I don't feel safe. Or if they do go to work, they feel like they can't do their jobs effectively, right? Because it's preoccupying and daunting kind of being in an environment where you don't feel 100% at ease. And that ultimately trickles down into the customer experience, and the customer's already dealing with a bit of uncertainty. So it's been interesting to see the pivot from let's use technology to, maximize that time in store and boost revenue in the moment. And now it's more about let's get to the fundamentals of what do we need to create a good environment for both parties, because that's really the determining factor of whether people are really going to be in our stores or not. Right. So it's almost like we're getting back to fundamentals in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that's really, really good point. I'm glad you're a part of this with us, because that's all very true. One thing that we have noticed is we've been, like I said, working really, really closely with our clients, and some of them are some really large retailers. And the successful ones have built very substantial protocols for reopening and continuing to be open, not just the reopening strategy. It's really that ongoing, almost day-to-day evolution as this whole situation evolves with that. And, we have been able to tie into those actual protocols and with this product, and it's kind of been a seamless thing around that. So I'm sorry, there's a phone ringing in the background.
No, it's okay. This is live, folks. This is what happens.
I mean, we're running a business here too. So
exactly. Business always has to keep moving. And I think it's fascinating because when we think about in-store tech, I feel like I've been hearing a lot about this notion of agility and flexibility. I guess not just at the tech level, right? It's kind of permeating across all areas of retail. Like we have to be, fast to respond, and we need to just, lift things up and be able to just move, even if it's not 100% the right thing or the best thing. We just need to be able to serve our customers the best that we can. But I also know that there's kind of like a tug of war happening with that whole concept, right? Like, okay, we need to get things up and running quickly. We saw a lot of retailers start up with curbside, for instance, and saw a lot of success stories come out of that. But there's also a need for reliability and stability, especially when we're talking about tech investments, right? So curious to hear about the conversations you're having around, I guess, agility as a concept. Are retailers embracing it? And also, how are you encouraging that balancing of all of the elements, so the agility and the stability and, managing that change, because it's happening so fast, right? I mean, even if we feel like, okay, we can take a minute to breathe, there's still so many other factors that are still changing and taking shape right now.
Right. Well, in dealing with our customers, having stability and reliability in the hardware and the software is part of our DNA at Reality. we have a process that we go through for retail ruggedness to help build off of that strong foundation, combination of evaluating hardware, software, serviceability to meet each customer's need, whether that be with the Access Hub or in a touchscreen scenario or just digital content, to make sure that you have live screens, up to 90% uptime for any of your interactives in your retail experience. So as long as you have that foundation, the agility comes with the software. We have remote deployments that we can do down with clients, so that we look at how it future-proofs the solutions that we create, and we can move with you as your policies change, and to whatever your content or marketing campaigns are for that season.
Yeah, that's really, really important. It's been important to our clients to have that ability. So any company, retailer that needs to be scalable and needs to be agile needs platforms that they're running off of that are doing the exact same thing. Where even if you look at content, right, being able to change your content seamlessly and have it change online and within retail at the same time and effectively content manage is huge. And then it's reliability too. We pride ourselves, and I hope that anybody watching this is working with people that are approaching it the same way. But we pride ourselves with the fact that if you have hardware running, it's up all the time. It's got to be over 90%, 95%, whatever that number is. You don't want black screens, and that's a need to have. When you're dealing with something, say like kicking it back to Access here, this product is tying into door locks, it's tying into timesheets, it's tying into livelihood is really what's happening. So to have it go down can have massive negative impacts. So it's no longer a nice to have, it's a must have. And companies that have that kind of infrastructure put in place and have that kind of support are going to do they're going to do well. It's a differentiator. It's a true differentiator. And then on top of it, if you're expanding technology across multiple locations, businesses, retail locations, you need to do it fast and quickly. If you're gonna add new hardware, new screens, new technology, you need to be able to roll that out extremely quickly. We've rolled out this thing right here in thousands of locations in like a very short period of time and gotten them all up and running. Companies need to have the ability to do that because everything is changing so quickly. And then you also brought up curbside, right? Curbside pickup, online ordering. That had a barrier of entry, right? Before. A lot of people knew it was out there. A lot of people were like, oh yeah, I will do that someday. Some industries were doing better than others when it came to that, such as, food delivery maybe was a little bit higher.
Right.
The adoption rate changed overnight. It changed overnight because it was the only way somebody was going to be able to get food. It was the only way somebody was going to be able to get the things to now remodel the house that they're sitting in 24 hours a day. So those are trends that now people were forced into adopting, and they're not going to go back, right? They're not going to go back because what happens when, Alicia, when you have some spare time, you fill it with something, right? Or anybody watching this, you fill it with something.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, that might be something more fun than going shopping. A lot of people love shopping. Some people don't.
Yeah, I was a late adopter to grocery delivery, and now I don't know how I would live without it.
Yeah, so we're seeing that. We're seeing that these things that were trends, that were further down the road, that were slowly building adoption rates over time, boom, people were forced in, I'm not going back, right? So there's a lot of that. And if you're using technology, so one thing that's really interesting in a lot of our interviews that we had and surveys that we were running was related to local produce, right, and grocery, things of that nature. You would think people might want to stay away from that? No, because they felt less people were touching it. Less people were involved with getting it to the restaurant or to the grocery store. So you're seeing a spike of things like people shopping in those more local type establishments, or going to restaurants that are more farm to table, which we were seeing trending anyway at a high level. But those that have reopened and can change their menus daily are doing really well, because you know what, they're able to, if they put in the right technology in place, they're able to update their digital menu boards within their location and the menu on their website at the same time, right? So these are technology changes that maybe a company might not have put in place if they just developed a website or got digital menu boards 3 years ago. But now the ones that did that then, doing exceptionally well. So I don't know.
Yeah, definitely a lot of interesting points. I do want to dig into consumer behaviors in a bit, but first, I'm really curious about the conversations that you've been having with retailers. Jessica, I guess maybe this question is for you. So you talked about the barriers to entry lowering around certain things, especially like curbside. We've been hearing a lot about like when you're in the boardroom and you're trying to get those ideas off the ground, like the typical timeline would be months or maybe even years. And now we're seeing it squeezed down out of urgency, out of need to just keep business going. I'm curious what type of response like you've been hearing from, your retail clients, even your peers around, like, is this like a real thing? Like, are we going to be seeing an acceleration in innovative ideas and concepts because, there's just this urgency to be able to not even differentiate, but just like keep business going, keep being where the customer is?
I would say yes. And I think that customer is online, that customer is digital. And so how do you keep that conversation going with your consumer so that they'll come back? You're letting them know what you're doing. Everybody has a COVID policy on their brand website. People are letting you know about curbside. People are shopping local, like Jeremy was mentioning earlier. And that can still work for big brands as well, because big brands are localizing to, their employees, their area. Clients are asking for, more integrations with their systems so that there are fewer touches. People that are coming to the store, maybe they want to do contactless pay. So how do you offer those things, and how do you move quickly to offer those so that consumers are more comfortable? Again, it's the themes of feeling safe, that there's less people touching their items, and take it that way.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, we're seeing, and I think you're alluding to it a little bit, a massive shift towards digital. That was one of the first things that was happening with a lot of our clients. We're lucky that we're one of those companies that handles retail and online digital solutions and web solutions and app development and all that. So our clients were having those conversations with us, like, all right, suddenly we're taking a hit here. How do we go to where those customers are, or the shoppers or consumers? And that was a trend that was happening anyway. That was going to happen, but it's one of those things from on the retail side of our business. We're like, all right, well, we're looking at 3 years. We've got time to get there. We have time to get our clients there. But that went overnight, right? That shift happened. And so they were really coming to us and saying, like, all right, so what can we do? How can we shift our focus over to online and not really miss a beat.
Right. More integrations and deeper personalizations for their customers, and kind of moving up that timeline, like you said, where it was maybe a 3-year plan. Now they're looking at, what the investment is in the next 8 months.
Yeah. There's this, I've been doing this for a while, and I've been always on both sides of these two businesses, e-com. We all know that it's been highly differentiated. A lot of times, just because of the history of how things have moved, they've always kind of been separate. A lot of companies, they're actually even separate teams. You have an e-com team, you have a retail team. And they're not, you know, let's be honest, a lot of them work independently, right? The customer doesn't, the customer or shopper, online shopper, they don't see it that way, right? It's gray for them. And it's not as black and white as maybe companies are looking at it. So but now, at this point, it's those customers and shoppers that are dictating what companies do. It's not vice versa. You can't just say, oh, well, I'm the company, I'm the retailer, and this is how it's going to be, and they'll come back. You have to move to where they are. And I think we talked about this a little bit, and you have to find ways to integrate better, because in a way, this sounds, I don't want to put like, this isn't meant to be like doom and gloom or scary, but this is like kind of an exercise in natural selection, really. You know, the customers will decide, and the closer your initiatives for retail and online are together, and as many things that can happen online, and you're really, really targeting your use of retail in ways that they can't get online, they're going to stick with you. But if you're not doing that, unfortunately, I think the challenge is going to be a lot higher. You know? Yeah.
Yeah, I think there were some really great points there. And I think that integration is more important now. I mean, it's always been important. I've been covering retail for, oh my gosh, like 10 years. And I think a good majority of that has been around creating that consistency between channels and touch points. That's what retail touch points was kind of built upon, that principle. But I feel like now, especially because we're seeing such a rapid shift in behaviors. I think, what was it? Like, we saw a decade's worth of e-commerce growth in, you know, a few weeks or a couple of months. Significant, right? Largely because of the context of like the situation that we were in. But a lot of conversations around how will that sustain? Will it level out? I don't think it'll drop to, you know, pre-COVID levels by any stretch of the imagination, but what behaviors will stick around, what will change forever versus what will, you know, level out, what may evolve even further. I feel like that integration is what's going to be key for helping retailers adapt and kind of massage their experiences across channels, so to speak. But any recommendations other than that integration, any other tips to kind of help retailers manage that, not uncertainty, I'm kind of sick of that word, but I guess the volatility of, you know, all of these different moving pieces of like, some things will stay, some things will change. I mean, any insights just based on your experiences or any ideas of like what trends you think will stick or change further?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack that question.
No, I know. So take what you will with that.
No, but it's a great question. First, I think it comes, you know, there is the now still. Like, there's always going to be the now. Like, what can you do in this moment with what you have? And I would say, all right, you should look at what you have already in regards to digital retail in your locations, and work with your partner or your team on those types of things to see, like, all right, what can we do to adapt what we have right now to work for us? And you know, the future technology or future digital solutions are a little bit later discussion, right? You look at that after, but right now, look at what you can. So we have projects that we're doing with our clients, things like product customizers and recommendation engines and product recommendation, stuff like that. Really, really cool kiosk features, right, in retail. And what we're doing is saying, all right, well, if you invest a little bit more, this can live online at the same time. Whereas they wouldn't have thought of that. They were like, all right, we're going to brief in a kiosk. So at least that first step to happen, like, work with your partners to say, like, all right, how can we duplicate this online in the seamless possible way, the most cost-effective way? Because you're going to have to do it. Eventually, you're going to have to do it. And the further you wait, the further you kick that can down the road, the more it's going to cost. So maybe you have to spend a little bit more money now to get your current kind of digital experiences online. And of course, in a way that's easily content managed and is pulling from the same data and all that type of stuff. And then, you know, the next part would be, are there solutions that, and chime in here if you want to cut me off it. And I hate, you know, anyway, so are there solutions where you can bring it the other way, where you can bring maybe your e-com solutions into retail that help with the buying process and the shopping process, right? So you're not forcing the customers, the retail customers that really don't want to interact with another person for even safety reasons, you know, health reasons, that they can find a lot of what they need within your digital experiences on their own, right? They can self-navigate that product journey. And by the way, if you do something like that, I mean, I don't want to brainstorm right now, but if you do something like that, you can put more stuff in the back room and open up your space so people feel more comfortable. And they're not like, you know, there's not products all over the place and the aisles aren't really small. You can actually spread out a bit. Stuff like that.
Yeah, and with the customizers or the quote builders and the recommendation engines, people are building their wish list because they might not be able to do it today, but they might be doing it. They're improving their home, or they're planning out these investments. And so by building those quoting tools and capturing the customer's information, you now allow big brands, you know, an avenue to continue to communicate to their customers. You know, delight while you wait for your products, or, you know, just continue that dialogue offline, whether it be with social media, email campaigns, and really building that out so that the conversation is more than just that one-time purchase.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, I think there's always going to be that feeling of trying to make your customers feel important and safe. And, you know, I think that's going to be a trend. But one thing that's promising, like we do a lot of touch technology, and a lot of people touches all over retail. That we're seeing that trend kind of like recenter itself back to normal. And people, you know, if you look at when the pandemic first started, keypads at checkout and things like that, they were covering them with plastic, and there's all sorts of things like that. They're not doing that anymore. People have moved back to center really on that type of thing. So that's good news, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't have a backup, because what's going to happen? Something's going to happen. Fear's going to spike or things like that. And you're going to need some kind of touchless solution, at least temporary, that you can engage. Or people that never want to touch a screen have something, you know, can they access the journey from their phone? Can you do things like that within retail? You know, still build that stuff out because it can be useful.
Yeah. I'm really glad that you brought up the mobile device as kind of a supporting element, or, you know, an alternative, because, you know, in my coverage of in-store technology, there's so many great applications, so many great tools. I mean, even digital signage, you know, which we've talked about a few times, that ability to communicate and engage your audience, especially in a time where efficiency is really important, right? Like some people want to get in and out of the store as quickly as possible. So how do you seize that moment? But hearing a lot about how that need for, you know, a great mobile experience, great mobile tools to support in-store shoppers, that's really coming to the forefront, which, again, we've been talking about for a while, but hopefully we'll see some acceleration there. And I think, you know, this ties to, I think we've talked about it a few times already, that a lot of the trends that we're talking about now as urgent or important have always been part of the narrative. They're just really, they've accelerated within a short amount of time. So that mobile piece in particular is really interesting to me. So we're going to keep a close eye on that and see how that develops and what retailers do from that standpoint.
Yeah, and we've been looking at that a lot because we do have a pretty massive nationwide client who uses a lot of touch screens within their retail locations, a lot. And you know, their initial fear was like, all right, like we have so much content we're putting into these screens to help our customers where there's a high level of weight within the establishment, to just navigate the programs, the offerings, the content. And they were scared, to be honest. Like, who wouldn't be? I think there's a lot of people that were. So we did a lot of research, or like, what are the things that we can do to help them. And we came up with some really great solutions that were simple, that rely on personal devices or iPads or whatever the customer wants to do. And what we're seeing is that, right, you have some, of course there is overlap, but you have, moving forward, you're going to have somebody who wants to do everything online moving forward. So you have to meet them right where they're at. They're not going to change. Then you have people that are going to go completely back to normal, because we humans are creatures of comfort, and we forget very easily and move back to the things that make us feel good, and one of those is shopping, right? So you have that. So you have that bucket, right? But that's a smaller piece of the Venn diagram than it used to be, right? So that is dwindling and getting smaller. So you can't just cater to them and alienate this person that doesn't want to leave their house, loves staying home. And then you have another person on the other side that's like, all right, well, I'll go to retail, but I don't want to touch anything. So you almost need to develop all three of these things, because you're going to alienate a larger swath of people than you probably would have in the past without it. But it can be done. I mean, it's like, it can be done. Yeah. And you can easily take a phone and turn it into a navigation device for any kind of screen. And just, whatever it is, QR to make that connection, or all sorts of things, without getting into too many technical discussions around it. But,
yeah. I know we, no, you did. I know it's so easy to get in a rabbit hole, right? Because there are so many different layers and nuances to it. I think we're kind of already getting into the next question that I had for you around, what kind of goes into the thought process of, designing the future experience, right? Knowing all of the different factors that are at play. So talking about those two types of consumers, right? The ones that are like all digital all the time now because of, the value and the ease that they've seen, and they just don't want to go to stores. And then the people that still want to experience that brand in person. What have you been doing with retailers? How have you been supporting your clients as they start to think about the strategic planning process, and I guess just general, points that should kind of go into designing the strategy moving forward? I mean, I think anyone watching right now is probably hungry for ways to best, respond for now, but be able to prepare for the future, right? Which is, I think we've talked about a few times.
Yeah. So do you mind? You want to go?
Well, I was just going to say that, with so many retailers, and I mean, in the economy today, there's been a lot of layoffs. And so brands are trying to do the same amount of work or more work with less. And so having the client conversations are, how does this need to live with you guys, moving forward? Once it is deployed, how can we support you? And so really kind of making that process simple for people. So as you mentioned, with the integrations, what are systems that you're already updating, and how can retail hook into that so that it's displaying or it's leveraging the work that you're already doing? Whether it be with social, with different video content campaigns, where can we draw from? How can we integrate, the pricing updates that you have, or user-generated reviews that are happening online? Kind of bringing that forward so that it constantly is updating and keeping your store fresh or online fresh for the consumer. I think that's where I think conversations go with the clients, is that, oh my gosh, I have double the work and only one person to help me. So reality, how, we're there to help expand to be your leg of your marketing team.
Yeah. So that's interesting on the partner, almost like the partner side, and not necessarily their customer side. Mm-hmm. We can't forget to talk about that discussion, right? So that's a really good point. I think, on the technology side, and back to that question, like about not expecting customers to come to the retailer, I could probably take that one a little bit. I think, you know, what we've seen as a digital agency on the digital agency side is that we were developing all these different things, right, for different clients. And then, you know, so for example, we have a client, and it's a large automotive company, a pretty well-known brand in the company. In the world, that we work with around their e-com platforms, where they have to localize, right? So they're you know, they're selling products in their local dealerships, and that dealership needs to get credit for that sale. So we've put in technology in place that allows that to happen. So like somebody goes to the main e-com website, but it knows that we know their location and we know the local dealership, and it credits that local dealership for any type of sale. And as a matter of fact, they go to that dealer and pick up the product and all that stuff. So we had developed technology like that, and now we're seeing that's become an opportunity when you combine it with other things. So for meeting a customer that still wants that one-to-one interaction with their local retailer that might be a part of like a bigger company, they still want that one-to-one experience. They still, you know, maybe it's their most favorite salesperson or somebody they've been working with and for years. That part of the business now has to shift online because maybe that person doesn't want to go to the location anymore. So that's where you can still have your retail location and you can still have the team that's there, but you're just meeting that person on their computer versus them coming into the store. So we're really seeing, you know, these technologies that maybe were put in place for one thing now being shifted over and being used for something that really wasn't planned for or expected. But, you know, it's about pulling those pieces together and kind of rebuilding something new, I guess, right? I mean, something like that.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I know we're running tight on time, so I do want to try and round out this conversation. So, Jeremy, you brought up a great point around, you know, existing pieces or components that are being repurposed, used for different things, reimagined. But I think it kind of ties into this bigger conversation around making the right decisions, right, for the business, future-proofing your investments, you know, maximizing that ROI and overall investment. So, I mean, any final points or considerations for everyone watching right now that love all these ideas, but they're like, how do we even get started with mapping out the strategy to the tech and, you know, maybe using what they have or maybe making new investments, right? I mean, so I guess to put a bow on our conversation, any pointers in that area?
Yes. So I think we touched on a lot of this already. I might end up repeating myself a little bit, but that's okay. I think the main message here, though, is look, technology advancements are happening much quicker now than they were. Every year, it gets that much quicker, right? So, you know, maybe 10 years ago, it was every 3 years or every year and a half or every 6 months or this, you know, that has been accelerated. And not only now has it been accelerated just because technology can be developed so quickly, but it's being accelerated by our environment, by people's behaviors, by pandemic, something like that, where it's a switch of the lights. Like suddenly consumers and customers' behavior changed overnight, and you can't risk, all right, we'll get to that. Right. So you need partners. If you have internal teams that are developing technology for you, or you're working with you know, an agency like us, have those conversations now and look at it, because there's any time. So if you're planning on kicking off a project for a new integration or a new bit of retail technology or anything like that, that's part of the dialogue now. what's going to happen in a year? What's going to happen if, look at those, because, a lot of what we do revolves around design thinking. And so we always say, all right, what can happen? What is cause and effect? And I think it's really important to look at all that stuff up front. It's just another layer of research and recommendation and discussion, and then decide whether you can afford it or you can't. But to immediately say, like, all right, I've got X amount of dollars, I can afford this integration or this product or whatever I need. We'll worry about that later. I don't know, just have those discussions now, just so you're prepared. Because I think that there is a lot of stuff short-term, the decisions that can be made that can say, like, maybe you don't even have to spend the money now, but if you build it in a certain way, you can bolt that on later, right? So at least have those discussions. Do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is about the mobile experience and being able to take, what you're doing in store and take it to somebody's personal device. Really along the lines of meeting that customer where they're at, because you're going to have all, you want to hit each zone. Those that are staying all the way at home, partially coming into your store, but maybe don't want to touch anything, and others who, want to come to your store for something special, for a relief to get out of the house.
Yeah.
And really make it a reason to come back.
Yeah, right. Differentiators now in retail are more important than ever. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think we touched on that a little bit earlier too, but really, really look at your strategy around what is making your retail location special and lean in. Like lean in 100% on that, because it's needed. Like retail is in the future. There's no doubt about that. But how do you use it more effectively? And really look at those discussions strategically and not defensively as much. I mean, there's this tendency to say, like, oh, what's e-com's killing retail or this type of stuff. No, that's not the case. They work together. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know of companies, there's brands out there that started online are now opening retail locations where retail locations are a part of the online experience. They're an extension of the online business. So there's reasons for that. So, I don't know.
I think some great points. So lean into it, even if it's a bit uncomfortable, have those tough conversations. I think, in any sort of business scenario, there's always, it's going to come off as a little bit negative, but there's always a bit of ego that goes into those discussions, right? Like people feel like their way's the right way, or their brand has always done things a certain way, and breaking free from that can feel a bit daunting. But I think those are some great closing points, because it's the right mix of challenge or call to action and the right mix of inspiration, which, now's the perfect time to embrace both of those, because now's an opportunity to reimagine and do new things overall, just reimagine that experience. We're actually over our time already, which I feel like we could talk for hours and feel like no time has gone by. But why don't you guys close us out for folks that want to learn a little bit more about the work that you do, continue the conversation. I think there are a lot of exciting routes to go. What's the best way to reach out and get in touch?
Yeah, the best way is you can email us or call us on the information up on the screen. I can read it. It's almost like an
no, it's okay.
Contact us or call us.
And also, since we did, fly through our time, I'm sure there's some questions that we did not get to. So we will make sure that we make that connection, to the team, to Jeremy, Jessica, or anyone else, and make sure you guys have those follow-up conversations, because we do think it's extremely important to build that community up, build those relationships, and continue to push the limits. So Jeremy, Jessica, thank you for going on this journey with me. I know I threw a few curveballs at you today.
Oh, it's okay. It was lovely, and I hope that it was a valid and great conversation. It was really awesome to be here, and thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you both so much for taking the time out. And everyone out there for joining us. Again, feel free to submit any follow-up questions, reach out to us through email, social media. We're happy to make those connections wherever we can. And of course, join us for another great conversation like this. Our next chat is in a few minutes at this point. It's all around global expansion, the new challenges that are emerging in this era that we're in, and of course, some solutions and best practices for anyone that's looking at global expansion moving forward. So we hope you join us for that. Thanks again to our great panelists today. Again, fantastic conversation. Really enjoyed it. And take care, everyone. We'll see you soon.
All right. Bye. Thank you.